What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Dream a Little, the podcast that's all about helping you feel confident about your ABDL side so that you can share it with that special someone in your life. Now, if you're here because you're not an ABDL yourself, but your partner is, welcome. I really commend you on taking the time to try and understand what ABDL is all about. Today, we're starting a new series that covers concerns partners may have when you tell them you're into ABDL. And today I'm going to be answering a question that I've been avoiding for a while now. Believe it or not, I feel like ABDL is a really private thing for me, despite having this podcast where I share a lot of intimate details about my likes and the dynamic with my partner. Before we get started, today's show is sponsored by my free webinar training that teaches you how to tell your partner about ABDL, even if they're vanilla. If you haven't told your partner about your ABDL side because you're afraid they won't understand and you don't want them to be freaked out, don't miss out on this free webinar. You can reserve your seat at thelittlelounge.com/free class. The first question we're going to be covering today is one that honestly makes me cringe, and I've avoided talking about it because I always felt like it's very personal, and I felt like if someone asked me about this, it was coming from a place of them being nosy or perverted. But today's episode was actually inspired by a real letter written to one of our listeners from their partner who is genuinely trying to understand more about ABDL. So let's just dive right in. Their girlfriend wants to know, how do you enjoy wetting yourself? So I know it's such an embarrassing question. And if anyone has ever asked you about this, it's just awkward and uncomfortable. Human sexuality doesn't always make sense. And there are plenty of fetishes out there that enjoy this type of thing. And I think the term for it is water sports. Some people like to be peed on or pee on others as a sign of dominance and submission. And yes, it's very unusual. Yes, it's a little weird, but it's not as if ABDLs are the only ones who fetishize this. I remember actually back in high school, there was someone, I don't know who, someone discovered a phone line that you could call, and I believe it was 1-800-PEE-ON-ME. And it was a voice recording of a girl going off about how she wanted to get a golden shower. And it was a big joke around my school, but someone found that because I'm sure they were looking for it. I'm sure that they were interested in it. There are some people who don't enjoy it at all, but it just depends on who you talk to. Some enjoy the feeling of desperation. It's kind of painful and embarrassing, but it's also could be a turn on because it's something that you feel you shouldn't be doing. And some people just enjoy going against societal norms and they find it exciting for whatever reason. It can also be degrading, especially if it's in a forced situation. For some people in the community, they can find that extremely erotic, feeling like you have to hand over all your power to your partner. And that ties into the dynamic that you have with your partner. It can even be a little bit comforting to feel like someone else is in control of you for a little while. It's a way of letting go of your responsibilities and relaxing. Again, this is all a form of role playing. It's not real. Some people don't even enjoy it, but they use it as a form of masochism where they're forced into doing it and they don't enjoy it at all, but their pain is the source of the enjoyment. Human sexuality is just a complicated thing, but at the end of the day, all of this is completely harmless and innocent, although some may find it gross, which is completely understandable. And for someone who is pretty vanilla, this can be extremely difficult to understand. It might be shocking to them. And I've heard and seen even more gross things than this. There are plenty of other things I won't mention here that are more extreme. Just trust me, this isn't the worst thing I've heard of. Now, if you're listening to this because your partner is into ABDL, but you really hate the idea of this aspect of it, but maybe you're okay with them wearing diapers, and that's completely understandable. I just want to say there's a huge difference between being accepting and wanting to participate. You do not have to do anything you're not comfortable with. Maybe you're okay with your partner wearing, but you're not interested in taking it any further. Well, that's a fair boundary to have when you're around. And for those ABDLs listening, when TK and I first started dating, this was a hard limit for him as well. But over time, he became more comfortable with the idea. A lot of you have been wondering how I brought up this topic, and the truth is, I didn't handle it very well, and that's kind of why I've avoided talking about it here on the show. But today I'm just gonna let it all out. So, what happened was, I basically didn't know how to talk about this aspect of the kink, so I just kind of surprised him one day without talking about it first. And as always, you already know if you listen to the show, I never recommend doing that. The truth is, if you want to do that kind of stuff, you need to have an honest conversation with your partner while you're not in little space to see if this is a hard limit for them. And if it is, you have to respect that. I know it sounds like what an awkward and uncomfortable conversation that would be, but trust me, it will be even more awkward and uncomfortable if you don't talk about it and you just surprise them without any warning. So if you approach them and, you said, "Hey, I'm interested in trying this. What do you think?" just to see what they say. Then you'll get an idea. If they don't understand the sensations you get from it, try explaining the physical sensations you get. For many of us, it can be comforting, it could be erotic, it can feel naughty or even a little bit uncomfortable. It's different for everyone. So find out what it does for you. Maybe you feel embarrassed by it, and really figure out, pinpoint what it is you enjoy about it before you have the conversation. No matter what, you always want to respect your partner's hard limits, especially when it comes to things like ABDL. Okay, now that that's out of the way, I'm so glad it's out of the way. The next question is from this same girl who says, "What kind of character do you want to be with? Someone who would get enjoyment out of inflicting domination on you one minute and put you in horrible scenarios and be your partner the next? How can someone respect you if they're thinking up ways to do that and enjoying the outcome?" And this is the question that led me to believe that the person writing this letter is pretty vanilla. And to me, you know, the question kind of doesn't make sense, because I believe having a healthy sex life is having a creative sex life. Anyone that is into BDSM understands that to a masochist, nothing is more pleasing than pain. And for someone who's vanilla, it can be very difficult to understand that. It's difficult to understand how being tied up, hit, tickled, or humiliated can feel extremely erotic and not horrible for some people. But let's not forget that everything takes place between two consenting adults, and everything, the key word here, is consensual. There's always a safe word used, and the dominant partner never has the ability to just override the safe word. Meaning, if the submissive partner is not in the mood for play or to be punished, the role playing ends immediately without any questions asked. When TK and I first started dating, he would always be coming up with these quote unquote horrible things to do with me when I got home. And I looked forward to them as well. We would talk about it. And, sometimes he would tie me up and tease me all night. And some might look at that as, oh, that's degrading or that's horrible. But to me, I was just flattered and really touched that he took the time to think about those things, because we both wanted it. It's completely normal and healthy to want to be tortured by someone, as weird as that sounds, but you're being tortured by someone you love. And as long as everything is agreed upon before you start a scene, hard limits are shared, and there's a safe word in place, everything is fine and perfectly acceptable. In real life, my fiance TK is not a villain. He would never want to inflict real pain on me that I did not want. In fact, there are some things that he has me do to him that I would not be comfortable with myself, like being slapped in the face. But since he knows, that's a hard limit for me, he sticks to other things like spankings and flogging. So again, this isn't just like someone's just thinking of ways to really, really torture you and hurt you. It's an agreed upon thing, and I know that can be really hard to understand when you're not kinky yourself. So moving on to the next question. This girl asked, why do you want to be humiliated and treated as less, even if it's just in the bedroom? Where does that come from emotionally? Has something happened in the past? Why do you do that to yourself? Doesn't everyone want to be respected, especially by their partner? Wow. So that's a really great question, and I just wanted to take a minute to talk a little bit about humiliation. So, humiliation is the public failure of one's status claims. Real life humiliation is traumatic by definition, and you're right. Generally speaking, everyone wants to be respected in real life, and we are no exception. But I've got to reiterate that this is a fantasy, and in the bedroom is basically a fantasy world that isn't confined to how things are supposed to be in society. And the bedroom is kind of like a safe place where you get to explore these things that aren't usual or normal to most people. And to humiliate someone is to assert power over them by denying them their status claims. And for some, being humiliated in the bedroom is extremely erotic and very exciting. I do want to say, of course, like most of us would never want to actually be publicly humiliated. Just as, some women have rape fantasies, it's actually quite a common fantasy, but those women would never actually want to be raped in real life. So when it's experienced in a consensual, private, controlled environment in the comfort and safety of your own home with someone you have mutual love, trust, and respect for, this can all be very fun. Generally speaking, this want for humiliation or craving for like this humiliation being a turn on is not coming from anywhere specific. Usually it's not caused by any trauma in the past. For some, we just find the taboo nature of it attractive. And I can only speak for myself here, but I had a fantastic childhood growing up. I just have seen some videos that sparked my interest in the past, and that's kind of how I got involved with this idea. There's really no rhyme or reason for these desires. It's just how it is. It doesn't mean that someone is emotionally unstable or they have something wrong with them. It's a totally, completely normal part of human sexuality. So there you have it, my friends. Those were a few questions from a concerned partner friend of a listener of the show. One thing that really stuck out to me was the fact that this person appeared to know very little about BDSM or kinks in general, and this is why I always stress testing the waters with basic elements of BDSM, humiliation, and other similar dynamics before you just talk about ABDL. You need to know that you're talking to someone who has a bit of understanding of human sexuality before you just lay it all into them, because when they understand a little bit about humiliation and these other elements, they'll be more likely to understand why you want the things you want. So if you're listening to this episode just out of curiosity and you haven't yet told your partner about ABDL, or maybe you don't have a partner right now, but you want to be prepared when the time comes, that's awesome. Be sure to sign up for my free webinar class where I walk you through how to slowly introduce ABDL and reduce the risk of being misunderstood or rejected. You can sign up for this free webinar at thelittlelounge.com/free class. That's thelittlelounge.com/free class. I'll see you there.